Hello, star people. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Ascend the Matrix podcast. I'm your host, Chris King. I'm a shamanic healer, psychic medium, astrologer, ascension guide, and creator of the Medicine Alchemist and Ascended Astrology. I assist awakened souls, light workers, and starseeds like yourself heal, connect with spirit and star beings, create 5D businesses, and ascend the false matrix. And this podcast will take you on a multi-dimensional journey through the world of shamanism, ascended astrology, UFOs and starseed contact, conspiracy theories, or should I say truths, and the multi-dimensional nature of reality, with the intention of bridging the gap between 3D and 5D so that we can ascend the matrix together. Today I have two very special guests, Philip Kinsella and Chris Mayes. Philip is a psychic medium, UFO researcher, and author who has been researching the UFO paranormal subject for over 30 years. He has appeared on radio and national television along with various documentaries, and he has also received an award for the dedication to the truth surrounding his UFO field of investigations as well as clairvoyance, and he has a vested interest in consciousness, UFOs, life after death, and cryptids. And we're joined by Chris John Mayes, who from a young age has had experiences of a reality existing beyond this one, including retaining the memory of his own incarnation into this lifetime. Chris is an incredible artist, photographer, clairvoyant healer, and now co-author with Philip of their new book, The Eternal Avatar, which deals with questions surrounding the validity of soul spirit, along with the process of incarnation, reincarnation, the meaning of what it really means to be human, as well as discovering your spiritual heritage. What we're going to really connect in with today on the podcast is we're going to go in many different directions, but what I really feel is that we're going to understand the nature of consciousness and who we are as eternal beings. And I want to tap in with both of you first. Chris, I don't know your energy as much because Philip has been on Brandon's podcast, Expanding Reality. Shout out to Brandon, who is a very good friend of mine. I love him dearly. And so I connected with Philip and his brother's energy quite a few times over the years watching that podcast, and really was fascinated, Philip, by your work with UFOs and the nature of reality, and just discussions on, because I've had abduction type experiences and I have starseed lineage and contact experience. And I have often wondered, what am I interfacing with? Is what I'm seeing even what is actually there, or is this a projection of my consciousness? So there's so many places I want to go in with that as well. And Chris, as I looked into what your work is, and as an artist and a creative and being a psychic, I told both of you before we got on here, I felt a little ungrounded, and that's what happens when you get in the space with other mediums and psychics. So this is going to be a very psychic and opening conversation for people. So let's start, Chris. I want to get to know you a little bit more. Let's start with how you got to this point in your process. I like to hear how these light workers and star seeds awakened and woke up and stepped into their soul mission. And Philip, then I'll go to you.
Thank you very much, Chris, for that introduction. Absolutely. So, I mean, even from a very young age, I must have been about 4, and I was having an experience where I was coming into this life, basically. I was seeing my incarnation of this life, and I didn't know what it was at the time. And it just dawned on me, and I pieced things together when I got older, when I was about 10, and I was starting to look into the subject, and it dawned on me what I was going through, because it was a repeating what I thought was a nightmare at the time, but it wasn't. It was going through the whole process of coming into this life, and I'll explain more into more detail later on in the podcast. But from there on, it just came to me spiritually, that with seeing spirits and being intuitive and telepathy with my twin brother, and I'm a
Both
Cancerian, I
of you
think.
have twin brothers?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Look at spirit. Look at synchronicity. And did you say that you have Cancer in your chart?
I am a Cancerian.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
Cancer rising here.
Okay. I don't actually specifically know where I sit within the astrological chart, but yeah, that's what
I
it
can
translates.
help you with that, but that's for
Yes,
another
please
time.
do. Please do. So yeah, I mean, my parents were very open to spirit. They've had their own experiences, which they shared with us as with our siblings, with my siblings. We were really, really clued up with what was going on at an early age, and it wasn't something that we could express and talk to with school friends. So it was very insular with the experience that I was getting, so I couldn't talk about it. But I was just growing and growing with it, and just self-interest, reading into books and films, and Arthur C. Clarke. I'm not sure if you're aware of him in America, but over here he was like the leading edge of the paranormal, and yeah, and so I had out-of-body experiences, and quite often psychic experiences, spontaneous ones when I'm in groups and circles, groups of friends. So yeah, it's just ongoing. It's just always increasing. And I've not had any UFO experiences as such. I've seen a few things that I've questioned what I've seen, but
Hmm.
not enough but I'm still open-minded with it and totally on board, and yeah, and happy listening to other people's experiences, as Philip's explained within his books as well. And so yeah. And so at the moment I'm looking at my artwork, trying to expand on that, and doing the book, which was totally unplanned. And it was Philip's passion as well as mine to come together and work on this one. And just coming to meet Philip was amazing because it was fortuitous, and there's certain synchronicities that was happening. I was reading his book Guardians of the Dead, and I was watching things happen within the room. I was seeing lights, and the book itself was glowing, and I was seeing lights from it, and synchronicities within my life. I was reading on the same day within the pages. And I thought this was what's going on. I was getting the voice to say, speak with Philip, reach out to him. I couldn't ignore it. So I did. And I mean, I've read many books in the past, but this one was, you have to meet Philip, you have to speak with him. And so I
So you
did.
didn't know him while you were reading this book. It was just I'm
Absolutely
reading this
not.
book and I get
No,
this activation. I'm getting a download right now
it
that I
was
would love to share with
exactly.
both of you. But about this and what I'm sensing, this is not the first book you all are going to write. You all know that, correct? Like you all are already on board with that. So, but what's coming through is that there's this brother energy, but also we come from a similar star group, not exactly the same, but they've come here to work together, sort of thing. Like they're contracted to work together, and so this was kind of a divine meeting point, and you all agreed to bring through this data bank, and this first book was the first of that. Okay, and it will expand beyond books. This is really exciting to events or experiences with people. But this book, it's the Eternal Avatar. We're going to go more into that here in a minute, but it feels like those of us psychics, even people who consider themselves starseeds or they have contact experiences, we have really psychic experiences, often very paranormal, especially like in the 1900s and before we were really moving out of that reality. We were still in that 3D, 4D threshold, before we were tapping into these much higher consciousness beings and information that was coming in. So we have a lot of paranormal experiences as a child, ghosts and goblins and the ghouls and the
Mm.
banshees and all of that. I definitely noticed that across the board. Philip, what was that like for you as a kid, for both you and your brother? Because I mean, both of you have twin brothers. I don't know how you all could do that again. There was definitely something in the contract there.
Yes, well, it's strange because within those synchronicities that were working out when I met Chris, I felt like I've known him for eternity, and that sounds
Mhm.
really strange. I've known Chris for just under 3 years, and it's an amazing experience and something that I felt was meant to have happened now. I would never have known that before, but my journey began when my twin brother and I had been with our paternal grandmother and we saw a UFO in broad daylight. It was the size of a football silver. That has been recorded and documented. And this opened up other levels of high strangeness. And when I was a kid, I was very interested in the paranormal. And I remembered Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, but he always used to, have that beautiful balloon and then burst it at the end, Chris. And
Yes.
but the subject of the UFOs fascinated me. I remembered William W. Smith's when I was a kid, and I was with my grandparents, and there was a book by Dr. J. Allen Hynek called The UFO report, and it had this beautiful, UFO on the cover, and I didn't understand a word of it, but my grandmother bought it for me because I wanted it. So I used to go to the library and do projects on the Roswell crash and the Loch Ness Monster. And I then discovered that there were other things that occurred in my past as a kid. Not going to go into too much detail because it's long-winded, but we did used to live on the property of Bignell House, which was created by the descendants of Sir Francis Drake and was owned then by a doctor who was an eye surgeon. We could use the grounds and everything. Some very truly extraordinary things happened there. So the event of my understanding of the psychic phenomena happened when my maternal grandmother passed over with cancer. And that then led me into understanding clairvoyance and in training as a medium. And I thought the big joke was, here is the man that's interested in UFOs, and now he's talking to the dead. I thought that my reputation would be flushed down the pan, but I was adamant not to let go of this. I wanted the truth. And I think that's something that burns within the very spirit of all of us when you're looking for that truth of what we are, where we come from, why we're here, and why. And we've got to address it. The system we serve has done its damnedest to separate any information that will give us that hope to inform us that they are much more than just the flesh and blood, and in this physical system that we currently occupy.
Oh yes, we're going to be. I open the conversation to talk about the system, and you can get as specific about that as you want on here. On this podcast, we've talked a lot about reptilians, alpha draconians, Illuminati, whatever the archontic forces, the system from all the way to the ancient times, Sumerian tablets, all the way from there and feeling into that system, just to the system that we're currently in on a more mundane level, whether you look at it as capitalistic or Capricornian in nature. There is a system in place that is designed to muddy the waters and to create confusion around all of this. And what I find right now is that as we gather together, what we're doing is searching for truth, because we're moving out of this age of Pisces, which is priest-king consciousness, which is very confusing illusions and delusions, where we have all of these ancient religious texts and lineages that are full of truths and geometric truths and universal truths that have been inverted, whether it's satanic or satanic in nature, or it is inverted, the masculine and the feminine has been inverted. There are so many truths with all of these lies and confusions and delusions sprinkled on top that what we're doing is sifting through all of this as light workers, starseeds, truth seekers, mystics, healers, to try to get to the bottom of what really happened here, how we got here. There's a myriad of stories about how we got here from the Anunnaki and these creation stories. And it's like we're all trying to find where the overarching themes and patterns that underlay all of this. And at the end of it all, there's something that's happening on a consciousness level here. And what we do know, especially us as psychics, is that we do live beyond this physical density. And I think all the time about the nature of the reality that we're in and the false matrix that we're in and all the different conspiracy theories. And I think, what would it be like to just be pure light right now, or to just merge with that fully and not have to deal with any of this shit? Okay. But also there's something really fun about all of this too, because sometimes beyond all of the really dense, really dark, very traumatizing tactics that the systems and the beings behind the systems are using to create density and trauma within us, there is this game, this escape game, or this game of Clue that we're all trying to follow the breadcrumbs back to something. And just a question that I have for you, Philip, is Ron or Ronnie, is he a medium as well?
He's more of an artist, and he does have it, but I don't know what happened. He doesn't use it as much.
Yeah.
I think that there just seems with me and my grandmother that there was this very strong connection with both of us. But
Yeah.
with myself, it seems now prevalent, providential. Even when I was a kid, I was seeing things happen. They were always negative, and I thought that I was creating these things. And then I
Oh, me
created
too. Yeah.
mantra, no God, no, never God, never, to cancel it out, and it would stop. And
Hmm.
I assumed, and at that point, that I was generating these images, these events. But later on, you find that it's not the case, that many other people have had these experiences, and you're just going through a kind of like a trial run of it, testing the human psyche, testing the mind, and of course, leading us to this point in time. I've never felt like I belonged on this planet. It's never felt like home to me. And I have seen the other side on two occasions. That was home. And Chris and I have, deliberated about our sovereignty beyond this realm. What star system is he from? What star system am I from? Are we from the same star systems? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a question that we pose to one another. And it's interesting because as psychics, as clairvoyants, as artists, all of these natural abilities, these gifts seem to combine into one. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I also find that most of us psychics and mediums, healers, we're also artists. We create things. I'm a musician and I create visual art, and I was an actor my whole life. That just tends to be in the code because it's that right side of the brain that's really open for us, and that receptive part of us, and that divine feminine, that beautiful creatrix energy that's really locked in for us. And Chris, what about your twin brother? Is there, I mean, there has to be a psychic nature there. I do find I have twin nephews. One of them, they're both Capricorn sun, obviously. One of them is extremely like the chart that they were born under, and the other one seems to almost rebel or try to not be like the other one. So I find that that tends to happen in that bifurcation as twins, especially as you get older. But Chris, tell me about you and your brother.
What you described is very similar to mine, actually, with my sibling, my twin. He is very much, at the time when we were younger, the complete polarized character of myself. So he was very
Yeah.
outward, very loud, very brash. But now
Yeah.
I mean, he's sensitive, but it seems that I receive better. I've experienced the synchronicity where he's, he went he got in a fight and he got punched in the eye, but I was elsewhere and felt it, and I
Yeah.
actually had the
Yeah.
symptoms of being hit.
Yeah.
It was watering, it was hurting, and I've tasted things like a soft drink that he was having at the time, and I messaged him and said, "Are you drinking this drink?" And he said, "Yes, yes, I am." It's just there's certain synchronicities there, so I am linked in with him.
Yeah,
So
for
and
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, there has to be
it's
a psychic nature in both your brother and Ronnie. There just has to be if it's in you. But there's this, I'm going to go in a different direction because we did decide on some level to be two different organisms. Brandon said it really funny on one of the podcasts you were on, Philip. He was like, "Why didn't you just swallow him whole and take on his power?" And I thought, there was something unique about the expression of this two. And the two of you even have that sort of energy with each other. They're showing me there's this kind of like how Lyrans will seed Andromeda and Pleiades, and then those two different star groups will come together, but they actually do have the same lineage if we go back trillions of years rather than just millions or billions. So there's this really intricate web that the two of you are creating together, and that seemed to have coalesced in this book, which, Chris, I wasn't as familiar with you, but just because of your connection to Philip, I assumed, oh, well, he's got to be into UFOs, 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 right? When you mentioned that you hadn't seen them, I thought, I know what this is. What their connection is doing is going outside of the realm of the UFO because where you all are from, they are identified. They're not unidentified flying objects. You all are tapping more into the consciousness nature that exists within all of these beings. So I want to talk about how you two came together and what the Eternal Avatar, this book that has an incredible cover on it. That's what really caught my attention about it at first. And so I've ordered a copy and I can't wait to dive into it. But I want you all to share a little bit about that because I want to talk about UFOs, but I want to talk about what lives beyond the conspiracy theories and these metal objects and the grays and the reptilians. What is existing within all of us and this eternal nature that's within us before we fractalize that and take it down into its smaller parts?
That sounds great. I mean, the trouble with our nature in this reality is that we're loaded with labels from the very beginning. You know, we're told male, female, rich, poor, and it's these labels that are dividing us, and it's being used against us. And like you said earlier, Chris, like you just want to break away and just be light, and that's what happens when you do break away from those labels, and you do break away from the physicality of this world. It's just you are light, and that's the initial state that I found myself before coming into this world. But to come to this book, it was meant to be, as we just hinted earlier, and it was through a conversation that we had. I was in the company of Philip and another friend at the time, and I mentioned about being an avatar. We're in a body, in a bodysuit, and we're spiritually plugged into this realm, and then we leave and we're eternal, we live on. But I didn't see it as a book, but Philip did. We left the conversation, and he said, Chris, I have a proposition and he wants to let's do a book. And I didn't plan it, and I had no idea that it could be done. I've never written a book before, but based on previous experiences that I've had, I think Philip convinced me that it was worthwhile, and I'm glad we did. It's been a good project to work with, and it's made myself and Philip realize that we work well together. And there's so many topics. There's topics in the book that could make other books, and I'm sure
Oh,
you're
it
aware
will.
with podcasts, you touch on a subject and it can last for hours.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So I find also that with Chris, he was and is very talented in his clairvoyance. His healing is incredible. I've never felt healing like that before, I've told him. His photography, his art, I mean, all of the things that he does. And I would kind of like, in this life, you want to pull people up, you want to bring them into your circle, and you want to, we help one another. It's not like, oh, I've got all the answers because I don't. All I have is a bunch of theories. But
Yeah.
it's so great to connect with like-minded souls and link with them. And you feel like you're in a group that is very, very, a lot of other people in life are not on that same level. And Chris gives me hope because that ultimate answer we're looking for in terms of life after death. And a lot of the work that I did in UFO research, the theoretical concept with the Greys, the concepts of cloning, these different ideas, the dangers of cloning and what may be going on were very much present in the work that I was doing. And I remembered I wrote a book called Reaching for the Divine, which was a bestseller published by another publishing company. It's my first book ever. And I then worked on a UFO book, and that came out. It was called Believe. And then I worked on a book called Sky Crash. And of course, then going forward, I found myself in a little bit of a dark place. And then who should turn up for
Hmm.
Chris?
Philip, do you feel like you
And
entered this dark space because you had reached a dead end in the labyrinth when it came to the current trajectory that you were on in your work, when it came to UFOs and everything you were writing about? Like you had tapped into that as much as you could, and it was time to go higher, and you needed someone to come and activate that for you or open that valve for you through this contract that I can plainly see that you all have with each other.
yes, I had come to a point where I didn't know where I could evolve further because when you're dealing with the UFO phenomena and the psychic phenomena, and now I'm going into the cryptozoology, especially the dogman, which interests me greatly. I had a strange experience, not with a dogman, but with two large dogs during lockdown. And and I was kind of like trying to put the pieces together. So yes, there was a point where I couldn't feel like I could generate anymore. Where was I going? What was coming through this? How was things developing? And I think it was Guardians of the Dead. Then I wrote some other books, You the Puppet Deceived, and then Terrestrial Trespassers, which were the UFO based. But it's almost as if Spirit was saying, no, 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 Philip, we need you to go back to the divinity, sovereignty of the spirit
Yeah.
of the afterlife. And of course, Chris walked into my life at that point. And that we just haven't looked back since that time. So it's a beautiful connection. The one thing I worry about, I always tell Chris, how long have I got? How many years have I got left before and then when I cross over, am I going to connect with him and a few of the other people that I really link with? What's going to happen? Will I remember? And so there's a real need on a deeper level with truth and trust and love and creativity that I don't want to. There are certain things on this planet that I do love, and a lot of things I don't. And it's just clarity and understanding and that hope. So the avatar, the eternal avatar, looking into that was interesting. And I remembered asking Chris, like poking, it's like feeling if I could get him to do it. And his poetry is amazing. And it just seemed to click and work together. So we worked on it, and this is the result of the Eternal Avatar, because we wanted to inform people that life is not about life and death, and that is it. And we're corrupted by a system which has continuously lied to us, not just about the UFO phenomena, the field of investigations with regards to that, but also life after death, consciousness, and creation, which I'm also looking into now. And I have been for a while, but I'm kind of like trying to put the pieces together into the Aristotelian texts, those which you know about anyway. And just to finish off here, what really puzzled me, and I still can't get my head around it, two things is money. And that's the ruling factor of this planet. And it's like, well, you need to use money to buy food to survive. It's like, are you kidding me? And also the other thing is the system would prefer people to have a belief in something. And that is safe grounds for the system, because if there's no evidence to suggest that there's reality based on that, it's all go for the system. But once something comes forward that poses a threat to the system, it will destroy it. And you hear these cases of archaeologists who have discovered there's a lot more to our Genesis, and the creation mythos has been disrupted. So we are living within a cancerous system that is determined to destroy the human. And the question is why? And I've said to Chris, whatever force this is cannot be human, because a human could not go to such levels on a united front to do what it's doing currently with our species.
Yeah, and I'm really tuning into the energy of this book, which a lot of it was, you could say all of it, but a lot of it was directly channeled. So there's a lot of new information or new codes that are in this book, and I can't wait to get into it, that are tapping us into what we can expect, not on the other side, but what we can expect when we release this density or this illusion of physicality. But before we go into that nature, I do want to go back to a couple things that you're talking about, which is this system and the inhuman nature of it. Okay. I wanted to tap into that, and we can tap in psychically, or you can just I have firsthand experience with beings in the sky, light, I'm not going to call them ships, but beings made of light who have been coming to me for about 7 years, who have identified themselves as Andromedans now. One of them is my future self. That is a whole sector of what I would call, I wouldn't even call that a UFO. It's not like a metallic object or a gray being from Zeta Reticuli. It is like an aspect of myself, or many of us here in that star group, who is coming into this reality. But then you have more dense 4D, 3D beings that exist inside of this planet, on the surface of this planet, in other parts of the galaxy, that are not who don't need to phase into our reality, but they actually helped create the current reality that we're in. And I just want to touch on that a little bit, because I love to hear what everyone else is feeling into about that. So can we go more into who do you feel? Even though this may be speculation, we can claim that we don't know, but I have had firsthand experience with someone at a medicine retreat, because I work with in shamanism and with plant medicine. This was years ago when I was a participant and I was not on medicine, who put their face in my face, and the face started to morph, and I thought it was going to be a cat, or it was going to be, I was going to see the animal archetype, because I can see psychedelic visions when other people are on medicine and I'm not. She turned into a reptile. Okay. And it was very clearly a snake-looking lizard. And I thought I had gone crazy, and I thought, oh no, I really put David Icke over there and he wasn't allowed to come over here. And that was years ago. Now he's right up here. Okay. But another participant at that retreat came up to me months and months later, called me and said, I'm not going back to those retreats, because that one woman, she walked in my room and her head was a lizard. And I just thought, okay, I'm not making this up. I have to accept this whole possibility of the archons and reptilian forces, alpha draconians. So that is where I'm leaning into right now, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this inhuman thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I mean, back in 1989, I had an experience, and there were three reptilians on there, and I'm not going to go into detail. Chris knows about it. There was no regression. I remembered it as clearly, and another researcher has put some connection links to that abduction that is quite shocking. And of course, back in the day in 1989, most people in the UFO fraternity could not accept the fact that reptilians could be a part of the UFO field investigations. It was all about the greys.
Right.
But now we're finding things differently. And it's interesting you mentioned about the reptilians because if you go into the ancient codices, our former so-called gods were of reptilian kind. You know that. And the research dictates that. So one wonders whether or not this force is still present on this planet. There's definitely a war going on, a silent war. I think a lot of the films dictate that. And it's interesting because I won't be afraid of them. I was then. I was not in a situation where I was in control because they disable you. And that is the frightening part.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you grow strong. And it's like, I'd be quite fascinated if the governments, well, not the governments, but if they've got them on cryogenic freeze, please let me in and go and take an examination because I've seen them within my psychic eye of what they look like. And I do believe the system has got a few of them on cryogenic freeze. And I saw that very clearly, armored, huge. And their ships, so they know how to mold matter. I spoke to another scientist in America, and it's interesting how in UFO crashes they seemed, from my understanding, they build up a composite of our materials, but there's a little something of theirs involved in it. So it's almost like conscious magic. They're able to project
Oh, yeah.
themselves into our reality. And Chris, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, I believe that I've not personally had a reptilian experience, but it seems to be energetic. They seem to be working on that energetic level from the stories and the evidence that it seems to present itself. And it seems very anti-human. There seems to be a lot of sentiment in that direction where anything that's human is removed. That we're, the idea that we're connected to a spiritual being, a higher spiritual energy. It seems to be we're being cut off from that on every level, genetically, physically, mentally, energetically, and everything with it's so many layers. It seems to be an attack to separate us from who and what we really are. So yeah, I think when it comes to reptilians, I think they probably do exist. They seem to be working on like the loosh. I think you mentioned once, Chris.
Ooh, yeah,
They
let's go
feed
there.
on. Yeah, let's go there. So it's I feel like if I focus on this topic, it feeds it. I don't need to research much in it to know that it exists. I'd rather spend my time focusing on spirit, light, and not to say that I don't want to ignore it. I want to know, and I'm aware of that it exists, but it can be a very dark place to focus on it for too long.
Yes.
Um, so yeah,
I
but
do
I know
also,
it.
oh, I'm sorry. I
No,
do
please.
also find that there are those of us who are meant to, in the spiritual community, we make fun of the people who climb to the top of Mount Shasta and they're love and light, and that's all they are, right? But I
Yeah.
I do believe many of us, different star groups and different coding, we have different types of intentions as we come in here and different missions. Some of us are meant to be shadow workers. Some of us are shamanic archetypes which dance between those realms. And some of us are meant to orient toward the light more and really stay there. And, when I go into this discussion of reptilians, it can get very dark because it is very dark. And I've had guests on my podcast who have escaped the Illuminati cult. They grew up in it. They were part of the satanic generational thing that went on for hundreds, thousands of years. And they discuss, they walk around freely in these government buildings and Epstein Island, and
Mm,
it was nothing
yeah.
to when I was a teenager, and talking specifically about a friend of mine who was in the cult and has gotten out and now lives in Mount Shasta and is a healer. That's what these reptilians don't know, is that the light, the darkness always serves the light, not the other way around. And so many of them are waking up to their starseed and healer mission and dismantling the whole thing. And there's so many different stories that I'm wanting to bring together right now that I have both of you here
Mm.
in this conversation. And he talked about he would see 9 foot tall alpha draconian reptilians walking around, not in their human shape-shifted form, just as a chameleon, the same technology, I'm going to call it a technology, that same biological technology that the chameleon uses to shapeshift, they use that as well to create an entirely different form. But then you have these different reptoid beings like the Anunnaki, which were reptilian in nature, and Quetzalcoatl in the Mayan times,
Mm.
and all these different gods that have this reptilian nature. And I do not believe that all the reptilian beings in the galaxy and the universe are negative. And I just want to bring into the space, because it's not often talked about, the idea that it's possible that these certain factions of Alpha Draconian reptilians, or the reptilians who are specifically running the UN and creating the Saturnic, which is Satan. When I say Satanism, I'm not coming at it from a born-again Christian Southern
Mhm.
Baptist sort of thing, okay? I'm coming at it from the worship of Saturn,
Saturn.
and
Yes,
just making sure we're all on the same page there
yes,
for
we are.
And
listeners as
and the
well.
moon.
And the moon, that's another one, because
Yeah.
as an astrologer, oh, you're going to get me started on that one. As an astrologer, in my system of astrology, the moon is a metallic mind control satellite.
I don't like the moon. I have an instinct not to like. I don't
Well,
even want to look at the
interesting that
moon. I
we
don't want
don't
the.
like it's
Yeah,
interesting we don't like it, because I'm Cancer rising, you're Cancer
yeah.
sun. We're supposed to be moon children.
I don't even like seeing the light of the
I
moon
don't
coming
either.
into me. If I see it in the window, I'll close the curtains because I do not like it. I have
There's
an
something
aversion to
not
it.
natural about it.
Yeah, there
Mhm.
isn't.
So we've got this
Yes.
Saturn moon matrix that is very much creating this reality, this bandwidth that we're living in, and many of us are just tapping out of that. And that's why this 3D, 4D, 5D thing is starting to merge together, and we're starting to see how time and reality and everything that once felt solid is sort of melting or now coalescing back into unity. But there is this system and these beings in this system that are specifically anti-human, because I believe we carry the codes of divinity, which you all are really mentioning in this Eternal Avatar book. I can see down to a DNA level that if you can hijack one of the most powerful beings in the entire universe and hijack the reality they live in, oh, what power that would give to a hierarchical, very ego-driven, archontically possessed. That's what I'm wanting to bring into the conversation, because you have the archons here and the reptilians here and the Anunnaki here, and not everyone's bringing them together into this story of what if these reptilians are possessed, because these archons are mind parasites. They're not,
Mm.
in the Nag Hammadi and those texts
Mm.
of the Gnostic texts, they
Hmm.
speak about them very metaphorically, or the language they would have used at that time. But if you think of them as mind parasites, and that they get in to create division within something like an infestation or a disease, these Alpha Draconians are possessed to have this hierarchical, very ego-driven superiority nature. And so who would you want to take over the most if you were living in that type of consciousness? Any organism, or the one organism that has the potential to contain the most light down to a DNA level, which is the human being. And I think we were created, even the story of us being created by the Anunnaki.
Mm.
What if that's a distortion? Zechariah
Mm.
Sitchin, he was a Freemason. How can we trust someone who was involved in one of the most
Mm.
satanic organizations on the planet? Excuse me, just I have firsthand experience with that. My great grandfather was a Freemason. So when we tap into this, there's so many places it can go. Even when you mentioned cloning, Philip, the cloning, how anti-human is that you have these biological beings walking around that don't contain soul energy?
Yes, well, you see, as the human, the avatar, it's incredible to know that we have that incredible power, that light, spiritual sovereignty, and coming into this world with hardly any memory of where you came from. But then as you evolve, you get kind of like flashbacks on a psychic level. Chris remembers his incarnation process clearly. And that I remembered, I sent him an image of Snape from Harry Potter looking completely shocked. And it shocked me. We have a sense of humor here. And I think it's wonderful to know that we have come from other systems of reality. The argument of Genesis is another area of great interest to me, with regards to our evolution on a humanoid level. And we can see, it's blatant to see there were drastic alterations within the modification of our species, and all from, I believe, what we would call extraterrestrials. I'm not saying they were all bad. I mean, the gods of old had their fallouts. They were warmongering, the same as what we were as human beings. You had the good, the bad, and the ugly, the same with us. So, when we look into the draconians, the reptilians, they call them, I don't think they're all bad. I mean, the science fiction miniseries V by Kenneth Johnson back in the 1980s, there were, you had the reptilians, you had the good, and you had those that they're the turncoats that were wanting to help the humans.
Yes.
So I think there's a balance here. And it's interesting because you hear these cases where a lot of people, humans, are interacted with by extraterrestrials that are benign and loving in nature. You hear of this many of the times. One person told me in America, he said, and she said to me, there's a couple, they said, you're that Kinsella twin. You're a negative, you are. That's why you got these negative experiences, because you're a negative person. I said to them, I am the least negative person on this planet.
What happened to opposites attract?
Exactly. But it didn't happen in this case, I can assure you, because I pressed the end button and got out of the conversation with them.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, I think, because we have to look at both sides. And Chris and I have discussed this, and I agree with Chris completely, because we are love and light. We deal with the higher realms, that connection to the Godhead, to the God source of all that is. And I think it's quite fascinating, because within all these varied subject matters, it gives us hope, because it's telling us through our arguments, well, not so much arguments, but debates, and through theory, that there is so much more to our existence, to the planet that we're on, to the creation process, to the universe. I think this is really exciting times. And now that we are able to tap unashamedly into our gifts that we have and present them to the world, not in the world's face, but now exploring it on a united level. Because when I was a kid growing up, you couldn't talk about this.
Right.
You couldn't really discuss this. I remembered a lovely school teacher called Mr. Charles. He used to smoke a pipe, very British gentleman, and he lent me and my brother all of his paranormal magazines that we could take away on the summer holiday, as long as we bought them back. We looked after everything. So I can see that with you, with Chris, with many other people, there is something inbuilt, maybe within the encoding process that you talk about, that activates, and it's like we awaken,
Yeah. And I do find that we awaken each other. There's contracts we make with other souls who were maybe part of the same Lemurian tribe that you were in, or Atlantean civilization, or Lyran. I mean, something I also want to bring up, which is coming through really strongly right now, is the idea of this Anunnaki, which is this reptoid. They're not the same as an Alpha Draconian. They are slightly different, but they are reptilian in nature, creating us at the Adama and the Eva. Is strange to me that they would mix their DNA. That's what really is strange to me, is that we're led to believe, even when we get past religion and we start saying, okay, religion feels like fantasy to me now. Let me explore consciousness, and then you come to the works of Zecharia Sitchin, which then tells you you're actually made of Anunnaki DNA and Homo erectus DNA. Well, then why do we look and function just like other humanoids in the galaxy, like Lyrans and certain Andromedans, or Pleiadians? Why do we look like them when they're not made of Anunnaki or reptilian nature? So it's just like there's this system in place to keep confusing us. It's like you peel back the onion and there's more distortions, there's more inversions that we have to use our intuition. It helps me strengthen my intuition for sure, but it causes us to keep searching for more truth when their intention is to cause more confusion and more density. But like we always say, that darkness always serves the light in some way because it strengthens our muscles of discernment. When they're actually trying to cause confusion, we still figure out the game. We keep hacking the game, and they don't like it, but there's just nothing they can do about it. Because what do you all feel about this process of ascension that we're in? And I know that word is strange for some people because it sounds like a rapture. Everyone's going to float up into the fifth dimension. And we know that's bullshit. And we know that it is a dimensional phasing or a remembrance. I believe we were already fifth dimensional beings or unified beings, and we're just peeling back distortions and density to get back to that point. But I don't think that the system has the ability to override what's happening to our solar system and to the sun as we're moving through this belt of energy, as we're spiraling back toward the center of the galaxy. We're moving through this highly charged photonic belt, which is causing the sun to release all these solar flares, which are activating our DNA. Let's talk a little bit about that, because what that's making me feel is that that is helping us to achieve a godlike state or an Adam Kadmon state in physical form to be able to hold the eternal avatar within physical form. So I just,
Yeah, you've touched on so many subjects, Chris.
I know I have
My head's
Gemini
going to
brain.
explode.
It can get
But
crazy over
I
here.
mean,
So
we talk about reptilians again, and light and dark and good and bad. And I think when we talk about evil, I've always been fascinated with the dark side as well, obviously, because you can't just look at the light. But evil in itself, it's anything that removes us from our divinity, isn't it? Anything that removes us or detaches us, disconnects us from who we really are, the higher self. And I think that that's their attack plan is to do that. And I think with darkness, it doesn't exist. It only exists in the absence of light.
right,
So you switch the light on, there's no darkness. So darkness is inherently non-existent. It has no strength, has it? It can't exist. It exists on its own without light. So once we shine our light and spread as much light as we can, darkness will hide. It's got nowhere to go. It has no strength, and it only succeeds when there is no light, and that's what's happening with us. They're stamping it out. And in the book, I describe what light is. It's love, inspiration, gratitude, hope, and truth. And I think those are the characters that we need to remind ourselves who we are and build on those and be in the present. And I think the present is key. I think our focus is being taken away. It's being stolen. We need to guard our focus a lot more in life, because I think it's taking us away from the power of now. And I think we need to really be on guard there. But yeah, I mean, it's so many topics. I've lost track now with how many topics you
well,
covered. I was
No,
like, there were so many things I was wanting to speak about. Yeah,
I know
yeah.
the
I
Gemini
think,
brain.
I think also the question is why, what's going on? I think that's primarily what we're looking at. What has gone wrong? The human has always been made to suffer, and it's true that we are still a modern day slave labor force,
Yes.
even though they are trying very hard to make out that we were responsible for these being slaves and so on and so forth. We are in captivity. And I think the one of the questions that we're looking at is why? What is behind this, and why are they doing it? That they are primarily the two questions that we are seeking. And when you look, and not detracting here, but when you look into the Pentagon, and a lot of researchers that I've connected with, who, like all of us, are trying to fight for transparency, not just within the governmental sections, and I've had a little bit of dealing with that myself and nothing happened, but also to the top brass. The question is, why are they not informing the public of the UFO reality? And I think you and many other people can second guess why that is the case. And the reality of that is that it won't be comfortable, because their machine, the media machine, has been told to bring out this simplified story, rather like creation and all the rest of it. And when they're so close to disclosure with these other military officials that are high up in the chain of command, not just the military guys that are knocking on their door and saying, we want to tell the public what's going on. The system basically is going to cack itself because it won't know how to inform the public. And when the public get to learn that they have been lied to, the game is over. This is what's going to happen. It will cause literally a snowfall that becomes a huge problem. Oh, yes, UFOs are real, but oh, by the way, they may not be from another planet. What about the interdimensional hypothesis? Oh, now we've got another problem. What about the abduction program? Oh, is there an abduction program? Yes, there is, not with all of them. And what is the abduction program? What's going on there? And this is why I was interested primarily in the theoretical concept of what the Greys were, way back in 1996, and building upon the models of that. And then, of course, we have confusion because we have other aliens, as we call them. But I wanted to find out about the reproductive process, why they're interested in creating a hybrid for a system of reality that could not reproduce itself. That because, like Chris, like I'm a thinker. My mind is going around. Sometimes I feel lost with certain ideas, and Chris now kind of like pulls me back. It's like grounds me. But he's on the same level with me in all the aspects of what we're looking at. And it's fascinating. It's not like, oh, you had an experience that was negative in 1989 with 3 reptilians, and there were a few Greys there, one of which I recognized that was kind of scary and spooky to me. It's given me, a large perspective that it's not so bad. I survived the onslaught of what happened, and maybe there was reasons behind what they did. So I'm not saying that they were negative, but I can tell you one thing. I'm not sounding contradictory in nature here. I think I can deal with it a lot better now, and I have done. But when I saw those reptilians, my God, if they were present in our time now, let me tell you, people wouldn't be questioning or, making out that you're a fruitcake. Or when you see them, that to me was total fear. I have never experienced anything on that level of no empathy. I was just a piece of meat to them. They were huge. They were muscular.
Yes.
They looked very much like the T-Rex, I suppose you would call it. There was no communication with them. And I'm not here to bring the levels or the vibrations down. It is fact.
Yes.
And that's what happened to me. And through that shock, I spent all those years working out what is this and why did it happen on a level where I was coming out of my body? People weren't talking about this then. And then, of course, that sprang to the question of our reality beyond the flesh and how we were brought into these beings as reality, where that connection and making the abduction appear similar to the near-death experience and a reality of that. So yeah, it's been very interesting. And excuse me, Chris knows all of my stuff that I'm working on. I know all his stuff and his theories, so he's very, very aware. Chris is very perceptive of everything, and he makes sense. Whereas I kind of like, I'm off with the fairies half the time, Chris, so best place to be sometimes, I can assure you.
Yes, I feel like a very good mixture of both of you. I've got that playing with the fairies and the Sasquatch and Mount Shasta, but I'm constantly trying to ground it down and bring it back into the heart, where I feel, Chris, your realm is really, how do we bring it back here to the connective point and back to the light? And before I go to you, I just want to say a few things about what you just talked about, Philip, which was this prison, or this like being kept in captivity here. That's how we describe this false matrix that we're in, is that it's like a copy of a 3D. It's not even just 3D, it's an extremely exaggerated form of 3D, where the pendulum swing from extreme wealth to poverty to extreme love and light to the depths of depravity are being experienced here. And I do know that there are beings from all over the galaxy that find that very interesting, that know that we will tap out of it and understand that there's free will involved and can't just come in and swoop in and save us, because we don't need to be saved. We are people like us. These conversations we're having right now are part of the elevating of that vibration. But it's like, as above, so below. There are all these different representations of how this is operating, because although the false matrix is this prison that we're in, although it was designed by Saturn and the moon, it's being transmitted. We humans are the ones creating the false matrix. So we're living in a prison of our own. We may not have designed it, but we are the transmitter of it. We're the creator of it. And because we only have two strands of DNA turned on, which is abysmal. I mean, do you want to talk about this divine perfected being that we are? When I saw the cover of your all's book, I thought that's the Adam Kadmon. That is the perfected human. That is the light body, the plasma light body that we are, that transcends all space and time, that cannot even occupy a small fraction of this physical body because the DNA has been capped. We know that by science.
Mm,
That isn't just some theory. We know that there
mm,
are junk DNA, which has
mm.
so many terabytes of data storage available for us where that light is ready to get in. So it almost feels like what happened was we were not created by Anunnaki, is how I feel, but we were genetically, because these reptilians, they're master geneticists,
Mm.
messed with our DNA to create a being that would vibrate and only be able to hold a certain amount of light, which means that even our bodies are prisons because not being able to express the fullness of who you actually are is a
Oh,
prison
yes.
state. And so people like us who have come from Andromeda and Lyra and Antares and all these different places to seed this planet and help it remember and rise up again are going to feel like trapped in some way or the constricted in some way. And that's something that star seeds, if that's the term you want to use, will feel most of their life in whatever way that tends to show up. And I also, when you talked about the Alpha Draconians being these sort of T-Rex looking, that's how they're often described. And there is this lack, it's just psychopathy. It's like there's just
Mm.
no emotion and empathy there. But I would say that many of our global leaders who are human, some of them aren't, but many of them who are even human have that type of psychopathy as well.
Mm.
I'm sure that there are cows that would look at us in these factory farms the way that we look at the reptilians, because we're a factory, that's a factory farm inside of a bigger factory farm. And it's like they are trying to turn us into them
Mm.
is what it feels
Yes.
like. Even I can't use certain terms because this is going on YouTube, but even certain things that go inside of you
Mhm.
and have reptile venom and things like this. I'm not saying this is fact. I haven't been in the lab with my microscope, but there are immortal, I don't forget the name of these, what do you call a hydra? Ooh, I have to be careful about that word too. But there are these
Mm.
immortal microorganisms with multiple heads that are in these substances that they're putting into our bodies that are designed to continue on and cannot be killed, that are contained within snake venom. It gets really weird when you get deep into it and you start to, I talk about it with a friend of mine who lives in Mount Shasta, who I mentioned earlier, the lengths that they go through with the mind control, the psyops, the programs, the trauma programs, the moon, everything they're doing to create this reality. Aren't they exhausted already?
Yes, I have to say to you that the Eternal Avatar and Chris was correct in turning it round because there were some parts that were quite dark. We had to address certain areas. But Chris is right in the sense of the Avatar and giving people hope in the knowledge that they are much more powerful, that they must get in touch with that a deeper part that has been suppressed. And that there is, although the system that we serve is corrupted, it has been hijacked by an alternative force that has been here for a very long time. We all
Very
know that.
long.
A very long time, and even before the inception of our species came into the fore. And that's why they're trying so hard within academia to cover any tracks of our sovereignty, of our genesis, because it's much, much older. They're trying to make out 100,000 years. We're looking at millions of years here.
Yes.
So what Chris was saying was that, people should wake up and understand that there is nothing to fear. that loving yourself, we can't change the world, but we can change who we are, what we are. And that avatar can surely shine within the very essence of our being and move outwards. And I'm sure, as I said, I have the greatest respect for those people who are working under pressure, who are covering this subject matter. I do feel for them because their jobs and their livelihoods are destroyed. But I
Yes.
would give my right arm to walk into that and see those beings there because that would be fascinating,
Hmm.
along with their mind technology and where they got that from. And the magic that they could utilize, we ourselves could do the same if we knew how to do that.
Yeah. Chris, what do you feel? Because right now, as you're mentioning all of this, there are a lot of people who, if we gave them your book, couldn't even receive it or wouldn't even vibrate in the
No,
frequency of it because
no.
they're not, I don't want to say awake or like we're more awake than other people, but let's call a spade a spade. Some of us are more in the know. Okay. It doesn't have to mean that we're more evolved or better or that our soul is destined for something greater. But some of us, our eyes are a little bit more open to certain things. And even on a DNA level, those of us who came from other places and incarnated with strong soul missions, I do believe we have a slightly different DNA or codex there. So we are going to vibrate or receive the information you all are transmitting right now
Yeah.
in a different way. So tell me about um, the eternal avatar and how it relates to the light body. And that's just what I'm seeing right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that's this process of ascension that we're in.
You touched on so many subjects, Chris.
I
It's
know you all.
the it well, with the DNA you mentioned, we are limited within our DNA, but I think there's potential, as you say, and I think science is proving now that our thoughts can activate our DNA, our thoughts and emotions together, and which is why they're controlling that. And I think the change in our DNA will is connected with the sun, as you said, the light codes, crystalline as well, isn't there? There's something
Yes,
to do with that. So
crystalline.
yeah, so I don't think we are limited within our DNA. We're told we're limited, but I do think we can change it with thoughts that we have and the understanding and the experiences that we have. They also change what the makeup of our bodies. Um, but so when it comes to the DNA, I do think that what was put in us at that time in 2020, I saw coming. I actually warned a few of my families. I knew that was going to happen. I had a feeling that that was the next step, and lo and behold, it happened. I think it just shows you the amount of effort it takes to control us in every aspect of our lives, the amount of energy it takes to control who, what, and what we naturally are and aspire to be. And I think the book's touching that. It's for someone that
Yeah.
wants to know a broad spectrum, and they can tap into whatever they want to believe in at the time that's comfortable for them. Like we do cover a lot of topics, and so I do think that when it comes to spirit, we have places to go to that's beyond our dreams still, and I just think that we've lost the ability to believe that however you perceive God, man, woman, an energy, a light source, whatever, do you think you have a connection with it? And the question I pose to any listener is, do you think right now you can have a conversation with God? Do you think you can have that connection right here, right now? Because if you don't think you can, then you've been disconnected. You've been told that God is elsewhere, that he's in another realm, detached from you. And I think that's where the source of our strength will be, is to strip away the labels, get back to who we are, and have the conversation and a union with God right here, right now, in the present moment. Because I think that's the lie we've been told, that we've been disempowered and that we don't have that connection. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of my
I
thoughts.
think you, Philip, before I go to you, I think you would have to, we should take it as a compliment, is what I'm hearing. It should be a compliment to us how invested they are in us
Mm,
out of all the different beings and
yes.
how much they're willing to do to keep this matrix going. We're obviously so powerful. They can't create. The archons have no ability to create. They are cut off from source. They're a void
That's
being.
right.
So if you're possessed by a void being or you vibrate in that consciousness, you cannot create reality. You have to hijack a master creator race to create people call it a hell realm. We could
Hmm.
do that, but a sort of heaven and hell realm. It's so
Mm,
dual. here.
Mm.
The duality swing is so, it's Garden of Eden and it's hell on earth in the same token. And I think it really takes so much effort because they cannot stop this process of the ascension, because it isn't even just a choice of ours. The whole solar system is swirling toward the galactic center, moving through this more highly charged particle environment. So there's just an increase in consciousness, and they knew it was going to come, which is why I think they created all of those religions. Because have you all found a lot of light workers, star seeds, healers starting to wake up, and they start to interact with false light beings or negative entities, and they start running back to Christianity and the church? Like they have this awakening that religion isn't for them 10 years ago. And I find a lot of them going back to their religious roots for safety because they're starting to interact with these reptilian beings, false light
Oh,
beings. And so it's almost like the church knew, let's create the new age doctrines and let's create the religion to keep them in this ping pong match. No matter how much they wake up, they'll wake up from the religion and then they'll wake up from the new age bullshit and go back to the religion. Do you see what I mean? There's this trap that they're trying to keep us in.
And that trap is fear, isn't it? Fear is always the
Yes.
tool. When you use fear, people retract. It's the natural instinct. Our Q drops, and what do? We go to what we know. We go to what we feel safe. And like you described just there in your very words, Chris, is that you do. You go back to your roots. You go back to the familiarity of
Yeah.
the world that you see as your safety net that you want to feel comfortable in, and not something that you can't see or something that's new.
Yeah. And those religions were passed down. People have, when I have readings with people, I have people who are psychic, who have witch wounds and are afraid to open to their psychic abilities because their entire family line was Catholic. So there's this dogma and this demonization of their own abilities that lives in their body that doesn't even belong to them. So I understand why it's so easy to do that.
when you've seen the other side, let me tell you, it changes everything. The reality of that is incredible. And trying to translate a lot of the information on a psychic level, I think that when you've been touched by the singularity or there's been an activation, we've all been there. When you have the impressions, it's incredible. For instance, I have insights of memories that are shocking, that are more real now that they've passed and at the moment that they were being recorded within this life and perhaps other lives, other situations. And I feel it's beautiful to know that we are reaching out to that divinity, to that source. All I want is immortality. All I want is the truth. All I want is love and creativity. All I want is a world that surpasses Star Wars. And I will take out the stormtroopers and Darth Vader in there while
Yeah.
we're at it. But, a world where everyone is helping to progress, to evolve, to develop. And it's true to say, and it's not because, oh, there's something wrong with you because, you're not happy with this life. It's because you can see the problems that
Yes.
we've got and they will not address them. And by damn, we will. And
Yeah.
even if the system doesn't like it, I mean, if Parliament won't listen, then we'll have to go to the top, at some point
Yes.
or some level. And the problem is, within these very subject matters, you'll have people telling you what it is and how it is. And that's dangerous territory. And this is why Chris and myself are, like you, very open to conjecture. You don't want to put yourself down a mental cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
because that doesn't help. We're evolving. And what's interesting is that the phenomena, this will tell you everything. The phenomena has also morphed and changed along with us. As we develop, it's one step ahead of us. It's like, oh, so we're going to be the flying rockets. Before it was the dirigibles, and then we created them, and then of course it was the ghost rockets, and then, of course then we had the flying saucers, and then we had the triangle. It's known within ufology.
Yep.
And now, where the interaction between an abduction was on a physical level integration, I'm not talking about the missing time component. And now we are going into an interdimensional construct.
Yes.
So, what is that telling us? It's telling us that the system that we serve, or those true overlords, are aware of what's going on and perhaps are guiding us, tricking us into the belief that it's this or that,
Yeah.
holding us hostage and not allowing us to see the entire picture as it really stands.
Yeah.
So there are two parts to this that's quite incredible when you're just looking into that one area within ufology, not just the spiritual part. And this is another area that really, really gets me or grinds my gears.
Mhm.
1 minute in the media, it says, oh, the scientists discovered and there is life after death. And the next day, no, there is no life after death. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. Yeah, and we know what they're
Yeah.
doing. They are pure bloody evil.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, excuse my French, but a lot of people on our level understand what's going on. It's just frustrating because it seems like even stronger to push down on you, along with that other event that occurred that was manufactured that we're not allowed to talk about, by the way. So you can see, and Chris was always aware and open when we met about all of the things that he knew that the system was doing, and see what they're doing now at this moment. Again, whenever there's something that's filled with enlightenment or truth or love, they come crashing down. And another telltale sign to say that, the way, as Chris has said it, to connect is always there. They're just trying to disable you, to bring the fear, disruption, control, and not allow you to reach up, to have safe passage within your thoughts to that divine nature of reality. So yeah, this is why the Eternal Avatar was written, to address these certain points and looking at certain deities, most notably Thoth.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting that he was created from light. And then people say, oh, that couldn't possibly happen. And now scientists are saying in the laboratory, well, they think they can create life from light. So there are many aspects within the book to give the reader hope.
Yeah.
And that is a word Chris knows I love, hope.
Yeah, and that was when, before we got on here, was the intention was, let's, like Star Wars, A New Hope. Let's give people this hope, this light at the end of the tunnel, because there are cobwebs in this dark tunnel that we're moving through, and it's a roller coaster, but there is this point we're reaching, a point of unity, point of singularity, as you brought up earlier, and as you talked about with the UFO phenomenon, how they want us, and I'm going to be very metaphorical here, to put things in boxes. And even Saturn, there's a 6-sided hexagon on the top of Saturn. The Saturn cube is worshipped all over the world. If we want to look at it symbolically or metaphorically or even literally, they want us to put things in a cube where it just is this. Just like I remember a teacher told me one time, don't ever tell a child what a bird is, because then they can't see anything else but that. Don't name it or don't tell them what it is, because then it is only that. And the true nature of reality is that it's multidimensional and that it can't be reduced and put into a box. And you talked about there being these rockets and saucers, and it was missing time and being taken up out of your truck. And now we're moving through walls, and it's happening in the astral plane. I think it can also happen to where we are ascending, so our own physicality is lighter and they're able to work with us in different ways. But also we are creating, as we are starting to understand reality more and sharing that with each other, we're co-creating the abduction and the contact experience with them, because we are creators. I think that we miss what your all's book is bringing through for me right now, is the idea that we're actually the ones they're coming for. We're actually the ones that they're not studying like lab rats, but in awe of. Because I think there are beings from all across the galaxy that are in awe at our ability to withstand this density, our ability to forget so heavily and remember again and share that with each other. And that's what I think that we have forgotten, even as spiritual people, is that we are this eternal light being that is so intelligent, and this human body that we're in is meant to hold a lot of that if all of the DNA strands were turned on. So Chris, I'd like to hear a little bit more from you about that. I'm going to say Gemini again. I talk like a tree. There is a trunk. It all comes back to a certain central point. But I also have a question for you real quick, and that is something that has always plagued me since I was a child, is this idea that when Chris passes away, I know there are parallel versions of me as well. There might be a parallel version of me that doesn't pass away at 70 like the one in this timeline. That can baffle my mind as well. But when I cross over or I retire this physical body or detach, will it be me? Will I feel like me when I go there?
Yes, is the answer. Yes, you are. Your personality is who you are, which was kind of constructed on this physical world. It's a byproduct you carry over, and it's a stepping process for in the way of familiarity. Like if you go on to the other side, it will be conditioned so that you accept it. And I think you're accepting a new element of yourself, a new way of living, and so your spiritual self will be your old personality, but I think that will strip away slowly as you acclimatize to that new level of being. The old personality will die off. So I think initially, like you say, when you pass over, you will have your earthly thoughts still. They won't just be gone. I think
Yeah.
you will still be within that transition period of shedding that old part of you that lived here on this planet. Because that was your survival instincts, isn't it? Your
Right.
fear-based thoughts, you carry that over. But I think when you're in that loving energy, those thoughts will go, which is kind of what I experienced when I had my outer body experience. The physicality, when once that's gone, your mind's your structure of thoughts is different because you're no longer at fear of things hurting you. You're not a victim of any outside influence to hurt you, and you become secure, and so you become more open, so that you develop in your environment, don't you? So you change to suit that environment. So I think that's one aspect of that. But
Yeah.
when it comes to us and collectively building our light, I think we underestimate the effect that we have in the room, just entering the room. When you're opening up and you're increasing your energy and becoming more spiritually sensitive and you're aligning yourself to the God energy, you are changing people. You're walking past people, you're affecting. I think to a point you can heal people just by walking in the room because your energy is not bound within the physicality of your body. It's connected. You're in a field. And I think people have lost the thought that we can do that. We can collectively change ourselves. Someone who isn't spiritually aware can be aware in your presence because you're helping them on a cellular level as well.
Yes.
I think you are able to elevate people without saying a word. I think that's the power that we have, which is why I believe they want to keep the numbers down in awakening. Because I think once we reach a critical mass, it will be unstoppable. Other
Yeah.
people that won't be aware will be aware. That's where I think what's the word where you mentioned before about the what's the word when you elevated this collective
Oh,
uh
rapture.
a rapture. That's where I
Yeah.
think in many ways it will happen, but in that way, in that way. Yeah.
And also, I have to address here, which is important as well, with what Chris is talking about. Another factor, excuse me, that needs to be addressed is the fact that isn't it interesting how these so-called abductees are targeted by this force. And one wonders whether or not those really running the show are using them as a servants because the individual is vibrating or operating on a higher frequency of conscious awareness and not programmed, not with conscious dissidence. They want to go in and find out what these mechanisms, these souls are doing, what makes them different. And I wonder whether or not the overlords are curious or puzzled to see where do they come from. You hear about genealogy and also intergenerational connection links that the Greys are interested in. Why is that? What are they looking for? In some of the cases I've dealt with and I know of, there was one chap who's linked with a scientist. The Greys said to him, after he asked, "Why are you doing this to me, the abductions?" He said, "Oh, it's because of your great grandmother." So they're looking for something. And I think that they're frightened that these elevated souls, those who are activated and becoming brighter and lighter, will ruin and destroy their program. And I
Yes.
think that this is interesting and it gives another sign away within the deception of the UFO phenomena. and why they are trying so hard to keep it as it was, like myth, truth. But the truth is far more complex, far more structured, and fascinating when you start to look. It's not just about the UFOs, it's not just about the aliens here, there are connection links to be made from one to the other.
Yeah.
And you said Chris and Chris, the other Chris Mayes, my Chris. You said that, decompartmentalization causes disruption and chaos. That is
Right.
exactly what these beings are doing. So I think that we are chipping away to find out what really is going on. And yes, it is extremely complex. This is why the public will not accept it, because the public have been programmed, and you can't blame them. God love them. A lot of them are programmed and they don't understand. So with us lot here, we're trying to put the pieces together, trying to dig up the past to bring the truth forward of what's really going on. But the end game is that the human is incredible, and the overlords, must need us for something. I know you mentioned sloosh, and there's a lot of darkness associated with that, that we don't really need to go into here, that has been recorded, but they are evil. But at the end of the day, they will fail, they will lose. That's what I feel psychically. They will collapse.
Well,
And I
that was
just
where I
say,
was
yeah,
going next was, you mentioned loosh, and loosh is a byproduct of our
yeah,
fear and a trauma
mm,
and its density. It's like a dense
mm,
ectoplasm or a food substance
mm,
that is produced by us that archontic entities really vibrate with and feeds that sort of energy. But what I was going to ask both of you now, as psychics that we are, and people who are in tune with what's going on in the collective sensitives, where do you all feel that we're at in our process right now? Because you just mentioned that you have a lot of hope. I know both of you do. But let's tap in before we go into the collective. In the ascension process, where are we currently at as a human collective, and where is it that we're going next, especially as we approach this year that everyone keeps talking about, 2027, human design, astrology, um, all kinds of esoteric teachings bringing up 2027,
Mm.
the great solar flash occurring in 2027. Where are we right now, do you all feel?
I feel that currently we are experiencing the realization of that what we thought was
mm,
real is no longer real, and the truth is not the truth. So everything's being turned on its head. What was once dark is now light. What's now light is dark. So we're going through that transition of realizing the lies, seeing the deception, and that hurts on a spiritual level as well as psychically. And we're feeling it collectively. I really do feel like we're feeling like one minute we're happy, next minute we're in despair. I'm getting that. I don't know if you are.
Oh, yes,
It just feel
yes.
like you don't know where you are. The energy is so mixed, and that's the byproduct of where we are. I think, yeah, where we are. It's the realization of seeing the lies, and it's the next step is where we go with the truth that we see. Do we believe it? Do we take it? Do we act on it? Or are we just going to go back into our shell and still be lied to and don't take back our sovereignty? And it sounds a bit cliche that, but what I mean is, you know, we have to live by our own means and by our own terms. Don't mean to be rude to other people. Of course not. We have to accommodate other people's views and opinions, but to live your truth and don't deny it. Don't be overpowered by those above that tell us what the truth is and dictating to us what news we should be exposed to and what information we should have. We should be searching for the information ourselves and discerning it for ourselves. And that's the growth that we have to get through. I think at the moment we've been very subservient to the information that we've got, and that's controlled our perception and our reality, because that's what ultimately our reality is, isn't it? It's a byproduct
mm,
of the information that we've processed. And
Mm.
the growing pains will be painful. And I think, in all honesty, it could be rough. It will be tough, I should think.
mm,
We have to look at the end goal, the end aim, and how much better things will be. And I think the structure will not just suddenly crumble. Most of it will, but I think we still need that structure to some degree that we need to lean on in order to get through. So, whether we still need and use money is one concept. Whether it goes digital is another discussion.
I
The
was going to
digital
say there's a whole
the
podcast
digital
right there.
prison of that is scary. And the transhumanism and the robbing of our connection genetically. It's a minefield. I mean, this is a topic that's scary. It's uplifting as well if we can break through it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I also think here that the system knows that most people have worked it out. And it won't make that public. I think the system know that we are clever, and a lot of researchers, all of us, are all instrumental in the uncovering of that truth. And I think it's becoming desperate now because it's starting to really show its true nature in what it's doing to certain people. It's trying to corrupt, to destroy sovereignty. It's doing everything it can. It's a last desperate bid. So one of two things will happen. Either it wins or we win. Whichever way, it will have to relent. What I would like to say to this force is, look, it doesn't have to be this way. We can share, we can work together. We can create the most wonderful things. We can help you, give you what you want to some degree, not the loosh. I'm not talking about that, but creation. What is it that you want? What is this problem? Should we sit down and talk about it over a pint or something? Mind you, I don't drink glass of wine or Beaujolais. You've got to have a sense of humor with this as well too. But I really feel that the system knows, and this is why researchers have suffered. UFO researchers, not just UFO researchers, and those people who are into cryptozoology and also within creation, because their careers have suffered. They've been destroyed because the system knows. It knows what's going on, and it knows everything's being uncovered. So I believe that, and I always like the music, The Firebird by Stravinsky, and the very last part of that is beautiful because I just see the angels and all those in power standing back, watching as everything collapses, evil goes down. They had their chance,
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because art also inspires us, that opens up that light within us. Music, films, things that inspire us, it activates, it lifts you upwards, love, creativity, all that type of thing. So yeah, I think they're becoming desperate. I think they know that we know, or we kind of know, and they're like, no, you're crazy, right? People are, no, these people aren't crazy. Let's look into it. So I think things are going to change now.
But
Yeah.
also, when we talk about these people in power, I can't remember who said it, but it stuck with me. And someone said that these people are clever, but they're not wise. And there's a distinction there, and a
Mhm.
truth that carries true. And I do believe that it's the lack of wisdom that is their downfall. But they're clever. They know they've spent many years planning this and the situation that we're in. Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands. I mean, this is the plan. I mean, if you look at the world we're in right now, it is an execution of a grand plan that has been going on for so long.
Mm.
And you all, as we bring this to a close, and as we bring this to the point of hope and light and being this eternal avatar, which is really part of this data bank you all are bringing through from another corner of the universe, which is to remind us of the light of who we are, to turn that light on within us. I just want for people who are just hearing about archons and reptilians or who are very familiar with all of this, to remember that some of you are meant to give your attention to it. Some of you are not. Some of us are shadow workers. Some of us are purely light workers, and we're those love and light fairies. We all have to honor where we currently are. And every time I have this conversation with myself, my guides, my higher self, or with people of like mind, I just keep seeing these two earths bifurcating. And it sort of looks like a dumbbell. It kind of looks like there's this tacky substance, and it's this 5D earth, if you want to call it that way, that I feel has always been, because the 3D reality that we're currently in, it is possible that it was also created or implemented not just by nefarious entities, but by universal or galactic, if you want to call it federation type energies, meant to entrap these dark energies within it, and we got trapped inside of it, knowing they knew we would hack this matrix and get out of it. But to
Mm.
contain this destructive force, they created this third dimension, or this false third dimension, that they allowed them to be the rulers of, knowing that the loose source would eventually figure it out. So you all talked about, you brought up transhumanism and
Mm.
people who are still asleep. And I have clients all the time who come for ascension and awakening activation and healing with me, who are light workers, who think, I'm having this awakening. Am I going to go into 5D, and is my family going to be left behind? You know, as if it's this literal
Mm.
bridge that's being created. But in some ways, there will be this new earth, or more true earth, that we're creating together. And I believe that there will remain this reality that is technologically uh, taken over, and where there are humans walking around, which are basically just biological androids. Which many believe that many of the Greys are biological
Mm.
androids with computer
Absolutely.
brains. Not all of
Yes.
them, but there are
Mm.
Zeta Reticulans. There are future
Mm.
humans who morphed into being Gray beings, and then there are
Mm.
these slaves to the Draconians
Yes.
that have a hive mind. So
Mm.
there is a lot going on in the universe. So if we bring this convoluted universe, as Dolores Cannon called it, and this all these fractals back into singularity in the one, it's that if you're choosing your light body, if you're choosing joy, if you're choosing the music and the creation and choosing your heart, you will not make it into 5D like it's a Noah's Ark and you better get on there before it leaves. But just you will vibrate into that reality that we're all now co-creating together, which we didn't know we had the choice before. And so now
Mm.
that we know, this reality is being created, and in this reality, we don't have to worry about all of those things that we've been mentioning there. So it's important to give your attention to it, to understand what's happening, but with that embodiment of more light, and through the works that you all are bringing to people, which are activating who they really are, that higher self and that light comes in. And I believe that when the higher self is driving, or when the soul has taken hold of the form, you don't need to divert your attention from the dark. It just doesn't resonate with you anymore.
Mm.
So we don't even have to worry about it. It's you're able to hold it in your realm of awareness without it
Mm.
taking you into it and becoming a vibrational match to it, which is hard. There's going to be people listening to this right now who are going to go on a TikTok rabbit hole down reptilians and archons, and they're going to be shaking in their bed, and then they're going to realize that they're okay anyway, and we're going to let them have that whole psychedelic journey, okay? Because I've had them in the past, okay, going down certain rabbit holes and thinking, I really don't want to be on this planet anymore. Now that I
Mm.
know what's happening here, I don't want to be on this planet. And then source, soul, light came in and said, but you chose to be here during the greatest mass awakening of all time to help with all of that. And you get to have friends, you get to have love and music and sunlight and nature. This planet belongs to all beings. This planet, or Mary, the archetype of Mary, came to me one time in the shower, and she said, the fifth dimension is not in the spaceships, the UFOs, the galactic center. It's in the trees, it's in the animals, it's in the roots, it's in the mushrooms. It already exists here. It's just you all need to remember that. And I think your all's first book, or first entryway into this data bank you all are bringing through, which looks like a big hologram, is this entry point into this next realm of spirituality that we're all moving into, which is, I'm tired of the conspiracy theories. I don't
Mm.
care about UFOs because we have open contact and we know that there's hybrids everywhere, and this isn't of interest to our ego anymore. And now what's of interest to us is embodying more light and remembering who we truly are on a soul
Mm.
level. So
Mm.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
stripping that back, it's almost say, not to belittle what you said, because it's basically to say it's what you're focusing on, it's what you're choosing to focus on, it's what you're giving energy to, and it's what's making it manifest more into your life.
yeah. Yeah. Philip, is there anything else you want to bring into the conversation before we go?
I just want to say thank you to you, Chris, and to my fellow companion and partner and in partner in crime and spirituality, Chris John Mayes, for having us on board and discussing these very important points. And, you know, we are theoretical, we're open to debate, we're open to all forms of speculation. We just want the truth. And that's all we've been after, understanding, clarity. And it's just crazy that we live in a world that is denying that. But we will fight. We are the resistance fighters, like from V. We will fight for that truth, sirs. We shall get it.
Yes.
We shall have it.
Yes. And so it is. Chris, is there anything else you want to say before
Oh,
we...
absolutely. No, thank you, Chris, so much for having us on board. It's always a pleasure to obviously see Philip again, but to be able to have this platform and speak with you, it's been a real pleasure and a joy. And I hope to see you again, because I'm sure there's so many more topics
Yes,
we could
I will
talk
have you all
about.
back on for sure. And
Yeah,
I
I
am
really do.
here. You all know where I'm at now.
And I just want people to realize, you know, not to lose heart, focus on what you want and not what you don't want. So let's direct our energies on s- asking the right questions and looking in the right places, because I think we're wasting our time and energy with what we're being fed. And let's just
Yeah.
get that gone. Let's move on. Let's look for the better way of living.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. This was a very expansive and when I say ungrounding, I mean that in the best way possible. I feel like I'm on a shamanic journey right now. We've been on a vision quest. So for those listening, thank you all for helping us co-create this experience and for being open to all the different places that we've brought you and all the different perspectives we're bringing through. And we truly are all in this together. That's what 5D is: unity, consciousness, unified organism, the heart. So I would love for you all to go and check out The Eternal Avatar. I'm going to put a link to it to buy it on Amazon in the show notes below. Check out Philip at philipkinsella.com and Chris at chrismays.uk. You can also follow them on social media. I'll put all of that in the show notes below. Philip, you've got a whole list of books that I now have to check out. I mean, when I saw it, I thought, oh my God, I have to, right? I just didn't know that what I didn't know. And so I'm going to put all of those in the show notes below as well. And I just want to say thank you all again for this experience and helping all of us ascend the matrix. We'll see you all next time.